In the Adebayo mansion,
Look at you,
silence
trembling like
was
a
never
leaf.
peaceful. It
You
was
are
the kind
nothing
of
but a
silence
common
that carried
maid.
power,
Amara,
judgment, and secrets too dangerous to be spoken aloud. The chandeliers glittered like royalty. The marble floors shone like mirrors. The servants walked softly. The guards kept their eyes low. And everyone in that house knew one
It
thing.
cannot be!
Chief Gabriel Adebayo did not like surprises. But the biggest surprise of his life had already entered his home. Her name was Amara. To most people in the mansion, Amara was invisible. She was the quiet young woman who helped in the East Wing, served tea when guests arrived, arranged flowers in the drawing room, and disappeared before anyone important had to remember her name. She wore simple dresses, tied her hair back neatly, and spoke with a calm humility that made cruel people think she was weak. They were wrong. Amara was not weak. She was simply patient. Every morning before sunrise, she crossed the long servant corridor carrying a tray of fresh hibiscus tea for Madame Ifeoma Adebayo. Every morning she heard the same thing. "You are late," even when she was not. "You people always need to be corrected," even when she had done everything right. Madame Ifeoma never shouted. Her cruelty was too polished for that. She preferred small, sharp words, the kind that settled in the heart and stayed there. Amara always lowered her eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Ma." But inside, she was writing everything down. Not on paper, in memory. Because some insults were not meant to be forgiven. They were meant to be answered at the right time. The only person in that house who looked at her differently was Madame Ifeoma's eldest son, Malik Adebayo. Malik had just returned to Lagos after 3 years in Johannesburg, where he had overseen the expansion of the family's logistics company. Tall, disciplined, and always dressed like a man expected to inherit an empire, Malik had the calm face of someone who had learned long ago that powerful families rarely gave birth to free people. His return was supposed to be a celebration. The newspapers called him the future of Adebayo Holdings. Investors called him the stabilizing force. His father called him the son who must not fail. But on his second night back in the mansion, Malik noticed something that disturbed him. It was raining heavily. One of the junior staff had dropped a tray in the corridor. Glass shattered. Before anyone could speak, Madame Ifeoma turned and blamed Amara. "This is what happens when people from nothing are brought into decent homes," she said coldly. Amara bent down immediately, even though she had not dropped the tray. Malik watched in disbelief. "She didn't do it," he said. The corridor froze. No one in the house liked being corrected in front of servants. No one corrected Madame Ifeoma and remained comfortable afterward. But Malik did not care. He stepped forward, picked up a towel himself, and handed it to Amara. "She didn't do it," he repeated. For the first time, Amara looked directly at him. Not like a servant looking at a master. Like a person trying to understand whether kindness was real. That moment should have passed quietly. Instead, it changed everything. Over the next few weeks, Malik kept noticing her. Not because she begged to be seen, but because she never did. He noticed that the flowers in the library were always arranged differently when she was on shift, and somehow, the room felt calmer. He noticed that she read discarded newspapers after everyone slept. He noticed that when his younger sister Tenny insulted a cleaner for breaking a vase, Amara quietly paid for the damage from her own wages so the woman would not lose her job. And one evening, when the mansion generator failed during a storm, it was Amara who restored order.
The backup system had malfunctioned. Guests were panicking in the dark. Tenny was screaming. Madame Ifioma was furious. The technicians had not yet arrived. But Amara walked to the utility panel with a flashlight, checked 2 burnt switches, and restored half the power within minutes. Malik stared at her. "You know electrical systems?" he asked later. Amara smiled faintly. "A little." "A little?" "I learn quickly." That answer stayed in his mind much longer than it should have, because there was nothing ordinary about Amara. She moved like someone trained to control a room, even when pretending not to exist. She spoke with the careful discipline of a person used to hiding her real thoughts. And sometimes, when she forgot herself, her accent shifted, subtle, polished, educated. This was not a village girl who had accidentally wandered into wealth. This was someone who had chosen silence. The real problem began when Vanessa Balewa returned. Vanessa was the daughter of Senator Balewa, beautiful in the expensive way that came from never being denied anything. She had been spoken of for years as Malik's future wife, though nobody had ever asked Malik what he wanted. Their marriage would unite politics, money, and influence. For Chief Gabriel Adebayo, it was not romance. It was strategy. Vanessa arrived at the mansion for a family dinner wearing diamonds and contempt. She walked through the grand hall as if she already owned it.
And when Amara offered her a glass of water, Vanessa looked at her from head to toe and asked loudly, "Does this house hire from the streets now?" The room laughed. Not Malik. Amara's face remained calm, but her fingers tightened slightly around the tray. Malik set down his fork. "That was unnecessary." Vanessa smiled. "I was only asking." "No," Malik said. "You were insulting her." Chief Gabriel looked at his son with quiet warning. Madame Ifioma intervened at once. "Malik," she said, "do not embarrass Vanessa over domestic staff." Domestic staff. That was all Amara was to them. A breathing object. A person whose dignity could be crushed to preserve the comfort of the rich. That night, Malik found Amara in the back garden, standing under the neem trees, looking at the city lights beyond the wall. "You shouldn't let them speak to you that way," he said. She gave a tired smile. "In houses like this, some people believe kindness is weakness." "And what do you believe?" Amara turned to him slowly. "I believe pride makes people blind." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been growing in him for days. "Who are you, really?" For a second, something changed in her eyes. Pain, memory, warning. But it vanished just as quickly. "I'm the woman serving tea in your mother's house," she said softly. "Nothing more." It was the answer of someone protecting a dangerous truth. Malik should have let it go. He didn't. As days passed, they spoke more often. In the library, in the garden. Once in the garage after midnight when Malik returned from a meeting and found Amara reading an old business magazine someone had thrown away. "You read balance sheets for fun?" he asked. Amara closed the magazine too quickly. "Maybe I like numbers." "Most people don't look at a company debt structure for pleasure." This time she laughed. A real laugh. Small, warm, unguarded. And in that instant, Malik felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. For the first time since returning home, he was not speaking to a politician, an investor, or a relative trying to control his life. He was speaking to a woman who seemed to understand the loneliness hidden inside privilege. But peace never survives long in houses built on ambition. One afternoon, Tenny found a sketchbook hidden inside Amara's room. She brought it to the family lounge and opened it in front of everyone, expecting to mock her. Instead, the room fell silent. Inside were designs, not random drawings, detailed architectural concepts, event layouts, supply chain notes, redesigned service flow plans for luxury properties, handwritten corrections to import schedules, observations about staff inefficiencies in the Adebayo estate itself. Chief Gabriel took the book from her. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. Amara stood still. "I made it." Madame Ifeoma laughed sharply. "You expect us to believe a maid created this?" Malik stepped closer. "She probably did." Chief Gabriel turned a page, then another. His expression darkened, because the notes were intelligent, too intelligent. Not only had Amara identified costly problems in the estate, she had suggested fixes that could save millions across the hospitality branch of Adebayo Holdings. "Who sent you here?" Chief Gabriel asked. "No one." "Do not lie to me." "I'm not lying." Vanessa folded her arms. "She's a spy, obviously." Madame Ifeoma nodded slowly. "I said from the beginning that something about her was wrong." That was the moment the family decided Amara could no longer remain invisible. And once cruel people become interested in you, danger begins. The next morning, Madame Ifeoma dismissed her. No apology, no discussion. Just a sealed envelope of wages and an order to leave through the servant gate. Malik was furious when he found out. He confronted his parents immediately. "You threw her out because she embarrassed you," he said. Chief Gabriel slammed his hand on the table. "I threw her out because unknown people do not infiltrate my house with strategic documents." "She didn't infiltrate anything. She observed what all of you were too arrogant to see." Madame Ifeoma's face hardened. "You are defending a servant against your own family." Malik's voice dropped. "No, I am defending a human being against injustice." But his father had already made another decision. "If you are wise," Chief Gabriel said coldly, "you will focus on Vanessa and the Balewa alliance. We are finalizing the engagement announcement next month." Malik froze. "You planned my engagement without telling me?" "We planned your future." "No," Malik said. "You planned your control." That night he went looking for Amara. He found her in a modest apartment in Surulere, helping an elderly woman prepare dinner. There were no guards, no grand gates, no polished cruelty, only warmth. The elderly woman, Mama Sade, looked at Malik and understood everything at once. "You must be the rich boy," she said dryly. Amara sighed. "Mama." But Malik hardly heard them, because the room itself told a story. It was simple, yes, but every shelf was organized, every bill was sorted, every file labeled, and on the small table near the window sat a photograph turned face down. Malik picked it up before Amara could stop him. In the photo, a much younger Amara stood beside a distinguished man in a tailored suit at what looked like an international business summit. Cameras flashed behind them. Security men surrounded them. Malik slowly turned to her. "Who is he?" Amara's face lost all color. Before she could answer, a black SUV stopped outside. Then another. Then another. The narrow street changed in seconds. Men in dark suits stepped out first. Then a driver opened the back door of the lead vehicle. And the man from the photograph emerged. Tall, gray at the temples, commanding, impossibly composed. Gideon Okonkwo, one of the most powerful businessmen in West Africa. Oil, infrastructure, ports, telecoms. His name moved markets. Malik stared in disbelief. Gideon looked directly at Amara. "My daughter," he said quietly. "I told you this game had gone too far." Silence swallowed the room. Malik could barely speak. "Your daughter?" Amara closed her eyes. Yes. The quiet housemaid they had mocked. The woman they had dismissed through the servant gate. The one Vanessa called street trash. She was Amara Okonkwo, only child of billionaire industrialist Gideon Okonkwo. But the truth was even more shocking than that. For months, Amara had been living under her late mother's surname, away from the spotlight, working quietly inside elite homes and businesses as part of a private project she designed herself. She wanted to understand how the powerful treated people when no cameras were present. She wanted to build a foundation for domestic workers, informal staff, and exploited women. But first, she wanted evidence. The Adebayo mansion had given her plenty. Not just cruelty. Records, patterns, conversations, names. And now, motive. Because while Malik's family had been humiliating her, they never realized Adebayo Holdings was also seeking emergency financing for a failing coastal logistics expansion. And one of the few men capable of saving or sinking that deal was Gideon Okonkwo. Malik sat down slowly. Everything made sense now. The intelligence, the restraint, the hidden knowledge, the fearlessness behind her silence. She had never been beneath them. They had simply been too blind to see her. "Why didn't you tell me?" Malik asked. Amara looked at him with sadness, not anger. "Because the moment rich people know your name, they stop showing you who they really are." That sentence cut deeper than any accusation. Back at the mansion, the storm arrived the next evening. Chief Gabriel had organized a private dinner with investors, including the Balewa family, to celebrate the upcoming engagement announcement. Reporters were expected later. Champagne flowed. Vanity sparkled. Then, the doors opened. A hush fell across the hall. Gideon Okonkwo entered first. Beside him walked Amara. Not in servant clothes, not with a tray in her hands, but in a deep emerald gown, poised, elegant, unshaken, looking every inch like the daughter of power. Madame Ifeoma nearly dropped her glass. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Tenny actually stood up in panic. And Chief Gabriel, for the first time in years, looked uncertain in his own house. Gideon greeted the room with measured politeness. "I hope I am not interrupting," he said. No one answered, because everyone understood immediately. This was not a social visit. This was reckoning. Gideon turned to Chief Gabriel and placed a file on the table. "My daughter spent time under your roof," he said calmly. "What she experienced there was deeply educational." Madame Ifeoma opened her mouth, but he raised a hand. "Please, tonight you will listen." The file contained more than staff complaints. It contained financial inconsistencies, illegal wage deductions, ghost workers on payroll, diversion of welfare funds, and a hidden agreement connecting one of Adebayo Holdings' subsidiaries to a fraudulent labor contractor. Chief Gabriel's face changed as he read. Venezuela stepped back. Tenny began trembling. Malik looked from the documents to his father and realized the empire he had been trained to protect was rotting from the inside. Gideon spoke again. You rejected my daughter when you believed she had no status. You insulted her when you believed she had no protection. You dismissed her when you believed she had no value. But the person you called unworthy may now become the reason your family business survives public collapse." No one breathed. Then Amara finally stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but every word landed like judgment. "When I came into this house, I did not come for revenge," she said. "I came for truth. I wanted to see how people with money behaved when kindness gave them no advantage. I wanted to know whether power had taught this family wisdom or only pride." She looked at Madame Ifeoma. "You answered me." Then she turned to Vanessa. "You answered too." Finally, she faced Chief Gabriel. "And so did you." The old man tried to recover himself. "What do you want?" Amara's eyes did not move. "An apology is too small. Money is too easy. What I want is change." She outlined her terms clearly. All exploited staff would be compensated. The fraudulent contractor would be exposed. Adebayo Holdings would fund an independent workers' protection initiative under external oversight. Domestic employees across all Adebayo estates would receive formal contracts, healthcare access, and grievance protection. And Malik would have full authority to clean the company structure. Or Gideon would not only withdraw support, he would ensure the scandal became public. The room understood the message. This was not a favor. It was mercy. Chief Gabriel, the man who had never bowed willingly to anyone, looked at the daughter of the woman he had humiliated in his own home. And for the first time, he had no power left to hide behind. Madame Ifeoma's voice cracked. "Amara, we didn't know." Amara answered without emotion. That was the whole point. Vanessa left before dessert was served. The engagement announcement was canceled that same night. By morning, rumors had already begun to spread through Lagos society. But the Adebayo family survived the first wave, only because Malik did what no one expected. He chose truth over blood. He launched an internal investigation. He suspended senior managers. He publicly announced reforms. He apologized to the staff in person. And though it broke his father's pride, it saved what little honor the company still had. For weeks, Malik and Amara did not speak privately. Too much had happened. Too much trust had been broken by silence and class and power and fear. But sometimes, healing begins quietly. Not with a kiss, not with a grand speech, just with two people meeting again as equals. It happened at the opening of the Okonkwo Workers' Dignity Center, a joint initiative funded by both families under Amara's leadership. Women lined up outside for legal aid, training, and emergency support. Cameras were present, but this time they were not there for scandal. They were there for transformation. Malik found Amara near the entrance, speaking with a widow who had just received job placement assistance. When she turned and saw him, neither smiled immediately. Some wounds deserved respect. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure I deserved to." That made her pause. Malik stepped closer. "I loved the woman in the mansion before I knew her name," he said. "And now that I know who you are, I only understand more clearly how little I truly saw." Amara searched his face. "And what do you see now?" He answered with complete honesty. "A woman who walked into arrogance without becoming arrogant. A woman who had power but chose patience. A woman who was insulted and still demanded justice, not cruelty. For the first time in many days, Amara smiled. Small, real, dangerous. "Be careful, Malik," she said softly. "That sounds like admiration." "It is," he said, "and much more than that." The wind moved gently through the courtyard. Somewhere behind them, children laughed. Staff members who once lived in fear now stood in sunlight holding appointment slips and employment forms. Something better had begun. Amara looked toward the building bearing her mother's name, then back at Malik. "If there is any future for us," she said, "it cannot be built on rescue. I do not need to be saved." Malik nodded. "Then let it be built on respect." This time, her smile remained. And in that quiet moment, without servants, without chandeliers, without the poison of class hanging in the air, two people who had met on opposite sides of a cruel house finally stood in the same truth. But inside the black SUV parked across the road, Chief Gabriel Adebayo watched from behind tinted glass. He had lost control. He had lost certainty. He had nearly lost his son. And as he stared at Amara, the woman he once dismissed as a maid, one terrible realization settled in his chest. The future of his family no longer belonged to him. It belonged to the woman they tried to humiliate. And that was only the beginning.